It is widely agreed that the greatest manager in Everton's history is Howard Kendall, but the man who signed Kendall for Everton as a player surely comes in at a close second. Harry Catterick managed Everton for 12 years, and in his time in charge, guided them to 2 league titles and 1 FA Cup, bringing the club back to the top after so many trophyless years. He is one of the great forgotten English managers. This is a story of Harry Catterick, an Everton great. Harry Catterick was born in Darlington on the 26th of November 1919 and was the son of Harry Catterick Sr., who himself had played for Stockport County. Harry Jr. would sign for County's academy himself and then played for Cheadle Heath Nomads, whilst working as an apprentice maritime marine engineer. He would sign for Everton, but unfortunately his coming of age coincided with the outbreak of the Second World War. He made wartime appearances for Everton, Stockport County and Manchester United. In 1946, he finally made his league debut for Everton, aged 25, and would play for them for the next 5 years. After this, he spent 2 years at Crewe Alexandra as a player-manager, before hanging up his boots and going into management for good. After leaving Crewe, he spent 5 years as manager of Rochdale, and then moved to Sheffield Wednesday, where he announced himself onto the managerial scene. In 1959, Harry Catterick led Wednesday to a Division 2 title, and achieved further success by taking them to the semi-finals of the FA Cup, and second place in the top flight the campaign after. This success saw him headhunted by Everton. The Toffees had just sacked manager Johnny Carey, and had fallen a long way from previous heights. The days of Dixie Dean were a distant memory, with the Toffees having not won a top flight title since 1939, or an FA Cup since 1933. Businessman John Moores had taken over as a director in 1960 and sacked Johnny Carey as manager in the back of a London taxi, which helped coin the phrase "taxi force saying" for any under fire managers. Moores had great ambitions for the Toffees, saying that the fans paid good money to see Everton do well and that something will be done about it if the club was not doing well. John Moores made it clear to Catterick that he wanted him to take Everton back to the top. Catterick saw about recruiting to help Everton fulfil the wishes of Moores, bringing in the likes of John Morrissey and Ray Wilson, who helped him finish in 4th place in his first campaign. Whilst on the red side of Liverpool there was a charismatic manager in the form of Bill Shankly, Catterick was the opposite, keen to avoid the limelight. He said the person who seeks the limelight has something wrong with them. Catterick ruled with an iron fist, renowned for being a disciplinarian, and was known as an abrasive figure, instilling a boot camp-like rule on the training ground, and established that his word was law. Catterick disliked matches being on the TV, wanting to ban cameras from Goodison to prevent his tactics from being seen by the general public, and also insisted on his lineups being printed alphabetically so that the opposition did not know his formation. He was described by many of his contemporaries as joyless, with Bill Shankly giving him the ironic nickname of Happy Harry. Catterick's cold demeanour meant that he struggled to connect with the supporters in the manner that the likes of Shankly, Revie and Busby had, but his ruthless methods would soon bring results. The 62-63 campaign began with a 4-game winning run, and a 9-game unbeaten run between mid-September and mid-November proved Everton were candidates for the title. Defeats are rare throughout the season, and they will not lose any of their last 12 games to become champions of England for the first time in 24 years, finishing 6 points ahead of Tottenham Hotspur. Forward Alex Young had netted 22 goals, with Roy Vernon chipping in with 24. Caterick was building a great team, and the Toffees, once the best team in England, had fulfilled John Moore's ambitions of returning them to the top. Now the task was to stay there. They had finished in 3rd place the next season, crashing out in the first round of their first European Cup campaign to Helenio Herrera's Inter, and this campaign also saw young Colin Harvey promoted to the first team, who would go on to be a club legend. The next few seasons saw promising league finishes, although they were blighted by Tony Kay being convicted in a betting scandal that revealed Kay had previously bet on Ipswich in a match against Everton. In 1966, Everton had a disappointing league campaign, finishing in 11th, but there was a chance for redemption. They defeated Sunderland, Bedford, Coventry, Manchester City and Manchester United to reach the FA Cup final, having not conceded a single goal along the way. Caterick would be up against his old side, Sheffield Wednesday, who were managed by fellow disciplinarian in Alan Brown, in front of a crowd of 100,000 spectators that included Paul McCartney and John Lennon. It was Caterick's biggest moment, and it would be a classic FA Cup final. The match is well remembered for Everton supporter Eddie Kavanagh running onto the field and being rugby tackled by a police officer, but it was a dramatic affair. Sheffield Wednesday took the lead 4 minutes in through Jim McKillog and doubled their lead in the 57th minute through David Ford. 2 minutes later though, the tables began to turn. Mike Trebilcock, who was a surprise replacement in the starting lineup for England international Fred Pickering, got one back to justify his spot in the lineup and show things weren't over yet. With that goal, the Cornishman Trebilcock became the first ever black player to score in an FA Cup final. 5 minutes later, Trebilcock got a second, blasting it in from the edge of the box, and Everton were back from the dead. In the 74th minute, Derek Temple was played through on goal and slotted it into the bottom corner to complete the comeback. Everton held on and would win the FA Cup for the first time in 33 years. Caterick had truly taken back to the top and had done so in dramatic fashion. His gamble on Trebilcock had paid off. He had gambled earlier in the season by dropping Alex Young for Joe Royle in a game against Blackpool, a move that saw dozens of Everton fans attack Caterick after the game, knocking him to the floor, and a supporter also invaded the pitch during another game, bearing a sign that said, "Sack Caterick, keep Young." Caterick was struggling to endear himself to the Toffees despite the success, but he moved to strengthen the squad. World Cup winning midfielder Alan Ball was purchased in the summer of '66 as they climbed the table to 6th place. The next campaign, Howard Kendall was brought to the club. Caterick had played a trick in the media of convincing them that Everton had missed out on the signing of Kendall, who had decided to sign for Liverpool instead. A journalist printed the story, only for it to emerge hours later that Kendall had signed for Everton. It is said Caterick had played this move to undermine Bill Shankly. Howard Kendall would form part of the legendary Holy Trinity in midfield of Kendall, Harvey and Ball, as Caterick looked to take the club to further glory. The 67-68 campaign saw them finish 5th and also reach another FA Cup final. However, an extra time winner from Jeff Assel saw West Brom emerge victorious at Wembley. They finished 3rd the season after, but the 69-70 campaign was a great one, as Caterick's side sailed to victory in the First Division, winning 8 of their last 9 games to finish only 1 point behind the record tally. Joe Royle, whose selection ahead of Alex Young had proved controversial, finished the season as top scorer. Unfortunately though, it was the bookend of Caterick's success at the Toffees. The summer of '71 saw him sell Alan Ball to Arsenal, a move that was met with outrage, and it wasn't helped by the fact they had just finished in 14th place. The 71-72 season saw things get worse, as they slid down to 15th, and in early 1972, Harry Catterick suffered a heart attack whilst driving home, which saw him in a hospital for 2 weeks. The heart attack took a heavy toll on Caterick, who was eventually persuaded by John Moores to take a role as a senior executive at the club, which he accepted. He would remain in this role in Goodison until August 1975, when he left the club for good to take the manager's job at Preston North End, where he remained until 1977. He would not manage again after this, despite applying for the vacant England manager's position that year, and he would go on to work as a scout at Southampton underneath Laurie McMenemy. Harry Caterick passed away on the 9th of March 1985 after suffering a heart attack whilst watching Everton against Ipswich at Goodison Park, almost 5 years after Dixie Dean had also lost his life at Goodison to a heart attack. He was buried with a gravestone that bears the Everton motto, Nil satis nisi optimum, or nothing but the best is good enough. Harry Caterick is often overlooked amongst the great English managers due to his avoidance of the spotlight and cold demeanour, but the fact is that he went up against the likes of Matt Busby, Bill Shankly, Don Revie and Joe Mercer to win 2 top-flight titles and 1 FA Cup, ending a huge drought for Everton. His legacy can also be seen in those he brought to the club, The Holy Trinity of Alan Ball, Colin Harvey and Howard Kendall now have a statue outside Goodison, and Howard Kendall's association with the club saw him brought back as manager in 1981, and as a result he oversaw their greatest ever era, winning them 2 league titles, an FA Cup and a European Cup Winners' Cup. Joe Royle, who he brought to the club, scored over 100 goals for the Toffees and won them an FA Cup as manager in 1995, as well as Colin Harvey becoming a youth coach for the club and helping Wayne Rooney come through the ranks. It is clear that Harry Caterick has a huge legacy at Everton, and without him, they may still not have won a major honour since the days of Dixie Dean. Despite not having the charm of his contemporaries, he is nothing short of an Everton legend, reviving them and taking them back to the top of English football. Dixie Dean and the Holy Trinity have statues outside Goodison Park, but it is fair to say that for what Harry Caterick did for Everton, he deserves a statue of his own. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video on the AFC Finners channel. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please have a look at the channel down below and check out the hundreds of videos available. If you'd like to support the channel on Patreon, you can do so in the link below for as little as £1 a month. Please let me know what you thought of this video and what topic you'd like me to cover next. See you next time.